You're watching Channel 7 News, #1 in Northern California, with Pete Wilson and Ana Chavez. Pete Giddings has weather and Dan Lovett with sports. Now, Channel 7 News at 6.
Good evening. Pete Wilson has the night off. Steve Davis is with us. Little rubber dinghies against the big gray battleships were just not enough. So today, Greenpeace wanted to make a more dramatic and more noticeable Fleet Week protest, something they've been doing all week as the Navy celebrated the enlisted women and men in their service. The protest against nuclear weapons and the great military ships is not new. And the way that Greenpeace notified all of the media in advance of their event is not new. But the tactic itself used today was unusual. Channel 7's Lisa Stark reports.
The protesters lowered themselves over the bridge shortly before noon. There were 4 at first, dangling 100 feet in the air, nearly halfway between the bridge and the cold water below. One demonstrator was pulled back up to the span by bridge workers. It was all part of a well-planned Greenpeace protest against the deployment of nuclear weapons at sea. The protesters had supporters above and below. A small armada of rafts and a mothership dodged the Coast Guard for a time, then were herded off to the Marin shore, where arrests were made.
You're under arrest.
I understand that, and I'm cooperating, but you are... Back on the bridge, one traffic lane was closed. Cars backed up, and sightseers strained to get a view.
It's a heck of a way to get their point across, but I think they got their point across.
The protesters were getting publicity, but not all the photos they wanted. Photos of themselves suspended over incoming Navy ships.
And we're going to get pictures with a helicopter that they had hovering out here, but apparently the helicopter ran out of fuel and had to go back and refuel there.
It's now over an hour into this publicity stunt, and bridge officials are tired of waiting. What they're now trying to do is to secure their own lines onto the protesters' lines in the hopes that they can then lower the demonstrators down to the water. In the end, the demonstrators agreed to lower themselves onto a Coast Guard boat. They were taken to Fort Point and charged with trespassing and malicious mischief.
We took this extraordinary action because we felt we had to protest an extraordinary situation, which is the placement of 1/3 of all nuclear weapons in the waters.
It was not dangerous for us to go over. We're very experienced climbers. We knew what we were doing. It was only dangerous when the workers on the bridge started messing with our ropes.
Something like this is very dangerous for everybody's concerned, not only for the motorists, for the people that are trying to help them out there, and even for themselves, really.
And after all this, police had to close the bridge for a time to chase a bank robbery suspect. They didn't get him. On the Golden Gate Bridge, Lisa Stark, Channel 7 News.
At least 15 people were arrested. Steve?
This is News Center 4 at 11. With Sylvia Chase, Bob Jimenez, Mark Johnson's Neighborhood Weather, and Gary Radnich on sports.
3 members of Greenpeace went out on a limb today, a very thin one, to stage a dramatic anti-nuclear protest. Their backdrop, the Golden Gate Bridge. Take a look. 2 men and a woman lowered themselves some 100 feet from the bridge span and hung from ropes waiting to unfurl a protest banner for 2 Navy ships expected to sail by. 15 other members, many in small boats below, acted as lookouts, but bridge workers forced the trio down into Coast Guard boats.
This is part of an anti-nuclear protest. We took this extraordinary action because we felt we had to protest an extraordinary situation, which is the placement of 1/3 of all nuclear weapons in the waters.
Everybody who took part in this, all 18 Greenpeace members, were arrested.
Live from Channel 2 and first in the Bay Area, this is the award-winning Teleblock News, the #1 primetime newscast in the country.
Good evening, I'm Elaine Corral.
And I'm Dennis Richmond. The most famous span in the world today became the backdrop for what must have been one of the most attention-grabbing anti-nuclear protests to date. 4 members of Greenpeace tonight find themselves afoul of the law, but none of them so far showing any signs of regret. The protest involves several huge banners, some rope, and the 4 protesters willing to go to almost any length to get their message across. Leslie Griffith is standing by near the Golden Gate Bridge tonight with a report for us. Leslie.
Dennis, it happened at about noon today, and it was certainly unlike anything people around here had ever seen before. Let me show you what I mean. Here's what it looked like. 4 people seemingly hanging under the bridge in midair. Greenpeace is known for doing things in a spectacular manner, and this protest was proof of that. But even as dramatic as this was today, it didn't turn out to be everything that Greenpeace hoped for. The plan was simple and dangerous. The daredevils of the environment would make a statement the world could not ignore. The climbers lowered themselves from the Golden Gate railing toward the sea, armed with a huge protest banner reading, "Nuclear-free seas." But before the climbers had a chance to unveil it, the Coast Guard rounded them up and took them in.
People think the arms race is going away. In fact, it's moving out underwater. And we felt an extraordinary action was needed to show how dangerous this extraordinary situation is.
18 people were arrested. 2 male climbers and 1 female, and several crew members watching below were also taken in.
Do you have anything on you? Any guns, knives, any kind of weapons?
No, I have nothing. Greenpeace originally planned this protest yesterday to mark the end of Fleet Week, because according to Greenpeace, the 5 visiting ships carried nuclear weapons. But as the ships left yesterday, the fog rolled in, so the protest was postponed until today. At first, it looked like the timing was all wrong. And then the USS Bagley crossed under the Golden Gate, making a perfect photo opportunity for the Greenpeace photographer overhead in a helicopter.
People feel that they have a responsibility to themselves and to the planet to save it from nuclear weapons. They did everything they could. They used safety procedures, very experienced climbers, and the issue is very important. They were not nearly as much at risk as the rest of the world is with those nuclear weapons coming through.
Police made the arrest. Traffic on the Golden Gate came to a halt for almost 2 hours. The commotion was just too much of a temptation.
Greenpeace was going to do whatever they wanted to do, but we were very pleased with Fleet Week and have absolutely no problems at all as far as the reception we received here.
The 18 members of Greenpeace were taken in. They were charged with trespassing, and we are told that they were later released tonight. As far as that big banner that they tried to hang and couldn't, police confiscated that as well. We are not sure whether Greenpeace has that back tonight. Of course, they do want it, and I also asked a member of Greenpeace if they got it back, would they try this again, and she said yes, it was possible. Dennis and Elaine?
Okay, Leslie, thank you. Leslie Griffith reporting live from Marin County.
This is CNN Evening News, live around the world, with Patrick Emery and Donna Kelly reporting.
Greenpeace activists staged a dramatic protest today off the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. 3 people lowered themselves off the bridge and hung in midair where they unfurled banners protesting nuclear weapons at sea. John Gibson has more tonight.
You could say they were suspended for peace. The site for this nuclear weapons protest was the Golden Gate Bridge, where 3 Greenpeace members lowered themselves on nylon ropes halfway down to the water, peace flags fluttering in the breeze. Up on the bridge, a 4th hangman for peace was arrested before he could go over the side. Bad luck. He was the one with the huge protest sign.
In turn, they were going to have a helicopter out here taking pictures of the ship coming under the bridge and the people hanging with the protest banners.
The 3 who were hanging over the treacherous Golden Gate waters used a cellular phone to call reporters and describe what they were doing.
The naval nuclear arms race has been accelerating. Almost a third of all nuclear weapons now are based at sea, which is the most dangerous place for them to be.
Upstairs, Golden Gate Bridge workers were messing with the Greenpeace ropes.
She's just concerned these guys are pulling her up and down.
We're in a dangerous spot right now because the construction workers on the bridge appear to be doing something with our ropes. We're concerned that they don't know what they're doing and are acting unsafely.
They thought that they had the situation under control, and really, when they come out here on the Golden Gate Bridge, they're not in control. we don't want anybody to feel like they're in control on the Golden Gate Bridge.
In the end, several Greenpeace helpers were arrested on the bridge and on the water, and the 3 intrepid protesters lowered themselves onto a Coast Guard boat where they were arrested.
It was a double whammy for Marin County commuters. While the CHP was dealing with the protesters in the middle of the bridge, the San Francisco police stopped traffic at the end of the bridge because an armed robbery suspect had been spotted on the bridge.
Traffic was stopped again for 15 minutes while they searched the bridge for the robber, and when it was finally clear that he got away, commuters were allowed to go on home. In San Francisco, John Gibson for CNN.